because we are going onto the German Autobahn. Whoa! Welcome back to the Freemaus MC. We are today reviewing a Honda VFR 750, the C36, I think, from Cher, one of my loyal viewers, and we're right now making our way to him. And it is a bike that I'm very curious about, as it is one of the 90s sports bikes, and I just love 90s sports bikes. As people that have watched this channel for quite some time know, my first bike has been a Yamaha FCR 600, so I definitely have a soft spot for bikes like that. So let's hear from me together with Cher about the Honda VFR 750. We now arrived here in Düsseldorf, and I'm now sitting here on Cher's bike, the Honda VFR 750. This bike has been in production for 12 years. It has a very special engine, an engine that is currently kind of getting a new hype, the V4 engine. The V4 engine of this motorcycle produces 98 horsepower at 10,000 RPM and 72 Newton meters of torque at 8,000 RPM. And this is a really special engine because it is a V4, and that on a 90s sports bike. I personally have quite the soft spot for 90s sports bikes, as you can also see with the beautiful styling of this motorcycle, with the integrated blinkers and also with the dual headlight. Also, this bike has a 21-liter tank, as this is more of a sport tourer per se, and dual front brake discs. Of course, this motorcycle also has been modified, and of course the owner, Cher, of this motorcycle can tell you more about that.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for having me along, Miles, to tell you about my 1997 VFR 750. I bought this bike 7 years ago, primarily for long distance touring. In England, in Italy, been several times to Italy, all around Germany where I live, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, yeah, all of that. And I've got to say, it's one of the best touring bikes I've ever owned, and for comfort I've made some changes. Biggest one is the seat. There's a gel insert which makes it very comfortable for long distance, even after being in the saddle for 6 hours where all your other mates are massaging their bums. You can still carry on and think, okay, yeah, we'll carry on, or we can stop for a coffee, whatever. Very comfortable. It's had a superbike conversion, upright bars, which is even greater for more comfort. It's got these adjustable flip up in case it topples over, it won't break. So you can catch that on the camera, but in case the bike tips over, these things flip up. Also, to carry my side boxes, I've decided to paint my carrier silver to match the rest of the bike. Michelin tires, yeah, okay. I love this bike, it's great.
So from a first impression, the seating comfort is quite great. You really feel that this is not just a sports bike, but more a sport tourer from how wide the whole bike feels. But the position is, for my height, I'm 6'5", or 1 meter and 96 centimeters, quite comfortable, and I think you could really do quite some time in the saddle here. So let's get on the road and see how this bike performs while riding. So we're getting going now. This thing has a center stand, which is incredibly cool for a motorcycle like this. We're going to follow Cher, who's now on my Interceptor. I'm a bit nervous, as this is quite a strong bike, and no electronics whatsoever, no ABS, no traction control, and that on a 30-year-old bike. I love motorcycles like that, and I've been riding my FCR as my first bike, but it's quite some time since I sat on a bike like this. I love the instruments on this machine. We have the clock here, we have a fuel gauge. That is all very special for a bike from that time. And also integrated blinkers. That is really cool and really good for the time. So we are now here out on the road on the VFR 750, which is all in all just an incredible bike. As you can feel, it has quite the punch in the mid-range, like wow. I don't know those curves right here. Woo! Like, this is quite the powerful bike. Even in the lower revs, you can definitely feel how hard this bike accelerates. Also how the V4 engine sounds and how it just has torque all over the place. Like, because of course with the V4 you have a crank similar to a crossplane crank, but just like the real thing basically. And this bike really wants to go. It comfortably wants you to go fast, which of course is not always an advantage. Let's see if we can just get through here. Wow, this thing has passing power. Like, you're basically blinking and you're at 100. With the way how the suspension here is set up by Share, you also feel so safe and comfortable on this bike. You feel it's a sport tourer in the sense of, from the chassis, it is more of a heavier bike, yes, but it definitely allows for fun. This bike is gear driven, so you don't have the sound of the chain in the engine, which makes quite a unique engine sound. Also, the sound of this motorcycle is when the bike is standing still, very, very quiet, which is nice because that's how the police measures how loud your bike is basically. And as soon as you get going, it sounds quite nice. So definitely a satisfying experience here. With this motorcycle, even if you're not really twisting the throttle, it feels so easy when going that you really need to look down to not absolutely obliterate the speed limit, because the way you want to drive this motorcycle comfortably is kind of in the no license anymore zone. And I don't mean this in a typical sport bike way where the thing just constantly wants to go. No, like you're basically comfortable cruising is in an area that usually is around 30 kilometers above the speed limit, even though we're not doing that, but like that's what the bike wants from you basically. Right now here at the stoplight, you can hear how quiet this motorcycle is. Oh, let's go. Yeah, and this is how it sounds when you want to go. And instantly you are at speed limit. One small twist. Honestly, this V4, from how it sounds and how it vibrates underneath me, is so cool. So cool. And that on a bike like this. You know, like V4 engines are so much the hype nowadays, with like MotoGP, with them basically dominating MotoGP, and the R1 basically being the only bike with a traditional cylinder configuration. And it's all the hype, but it's so expensive, and this is basically that, but like for a fraction of the cost. And it's so cool. And also when you twist the throttle on this thing, I now can't because we're behind some cars, you can feel this is not just 89 horsepower. Like I rode the Honda Hornet, which was 95, and this is definitely more than that. Not by much, but you can feel it. Passing power is definitely there, like one twist of the wrist and you're at 150, 140. As soon as you basically look at the throttle, the bike is just flying, basically. And also, something that I have to say, the bike seems like it's going slow, but it's not. It's always quite quickly and quite high up to speed, quite quickly. Like you think you're going 50 and you're going 80, 90. You think you're going 80, you're going 110, and when you think you're going like 100, you're going most likely 130. So the sound and the feeling of the V4 is just amazing. So let's do a little acceleration test here in a minute from a start. So let's go. Wow, this thing is so quick. The 0 to 60 on this motorcycle is 3.7 seconds, and you can definitely feel that. My Interceptor basically just disappeared behind me in the rear view mirror when really getting on the gas. And even when driving a bit quicker on this bike, it doesn't give you any clues that you're probably going way above the speed limit. Wow! Wow, this landscape here is incredibly beautiful. I mean, I'm currently out here testing this machine, but I just need to appreciate this for a moment. Of course, when you compare it to modern bikes, you feel the weight of the machine definitely with its almost 230 kilos. When you compare it to other stuff from its time, like for example my Yamaha FCR 600, which is a bit a different motorcycle because it's a 600 Super Sport, this feels more refined and not as rough, basically. I think that has a lot to do with the V4 engine. This V4 engine is really the star of the show because you basically have torque everywhere across the rev range, which leads to such a satisfying feeling when accelerating. And like Cher already said earlier, you can sit on this motorcycle forever. We've also, like you probably can guess, have been sitting in quite a lot of traffic on our way. And we still had a good time. We're sadly right now a bit cursed with traffic, but I have to admit, this bike is really comfortable, also from its knee angle. Even though the knee angle is aggressive, it still feels good in the sense, because on something like my FCR, in a situation like that, you literally would wish to die, because that becomes so uncomfortable so quickly. And I have such a nice position on my back, which is also due to the Superbike handlebars, but the stock handlebars are also supposed to be quite comfortable and a bit higher than you would normally expect. And also from the way the knee angle is, I think that does really well. Now the real fun stuff starts, because we are going onto the German Autobahn. Hui, oi, 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 oi. We're not in the unrestricted area yet, so we have to behave here a little bit now, as I was told that the radar camera is here close. So we're now basically just chilling. Oh, I see the unrestricted sign coming up. We're about to have some fun. Dude, get out the way, please. We want to drive unrestrictedly. Whoa! Whoa! We just touched the 200 kilometers an hour mark. I'm not going any faster than that because we have traffic. But wow! That was also so quick. Like, when you go speeds like that, usually your car or motorcycle slowly builds up to that and then you're there. I now was in whatever gear I was in and then just went, and the bike was, oh yeah, that was in 5th gear, and in 5th gear I just twist open the throttle, and not even 5 seconds later I was at 200 kilometers an hour. Quite cool, and the thing feels stable. Like 200 kilometers an hour is a really high speed that makes you a bit scared. Like, you feel your heart beating in your neck in most cars and on most motorcycles. This was just quite relaxed, actually. Like, I multiple times already went 200 on a motorcycle, and most of the time it is something that you cannot really just wing and do. But with this motorcycle it was quite comfortably possible, and you could actually also cruise at that speed. Yeah, crazy and nice. My suspicion with the bike having more than 98 horsepower is most likely true, because I did 200 on the Honda Hornet 750 as well. Of course, it's a 2-cylinder and everything, yeah. But you really have to speed up to 200. You really have to speed up, shift, and continue. And here it's just opening the gas for a moment and then bam, you're there. Also, from its top speed, that bike is quite comparable, as the top speed is around 230. And you have to keep in mind, 200 kilometers an hour on a 30-year-old bike, and it sits comfortably. That is really, really nice, because name a car that's 30 years old and sits comfortably at 200 where you don't feel your heart beating already in your neck. That is really impressive. And how amazing the V4 feels on the way there. Also now back here in Düsseldorf, something that I have to say, when comparing it to other bikes from the time, when you ride those other bikes from the time, they give you that feeling of, you know, that feeling when you sit in an older car that's from the 90s or 80s, but it has more than 400 or 500 horsepower, and you feel like Def is already on the rear seat. That is the feeling that I get on the FZR. And I don't get this feeling on this. You get nice sports bike styling, you get nice performance, a comfortable sitting bike that you can also tour, and you don't feel like it's going to kill you, which is really nice, because on my FZR I don't feel 100% safe most of the time on that bike, in a good way, but you don't have that, wow, that's a sketchy bike feeling. It feels good, refined, and even though it doesn't have any electronics, yeah, really nice. And also the frame and the suspension. Okay, we have aftermarket suspension here, but like the frame, it feels really nice and it corners nicely. One thing I do have to say, if you're a bit tall, you will touch with your shins the very hard plastics of the motorcycle. My shins on both sides are resting against the pharynx. Because my knee is a bit too long. The bike is comfortable and all, but having the pressure of the pharynx against your knee for some time can be annoying, but that's only for the taller riders. Oh, nice one. Haha. It's something that you have on many bikes, but with the V4, how the V4 has the newton meters spread across the rev range, you can make all the yellow lights. With a 4-cylinder that then needs to get its revs up, you're always catching the red phase. And with this one, as soon as you see the red light, even though it's like still like 30, 40 meters, oh, radar, away, you just twist the throttle real quick and you still have the yellow. Oh, what a beautiful BMW 3 Series. I love these ones. They're so cool. Also has a cabrio. So, we spent the day on the Yamaha, genau. Yeah. So, we spent the day on the Honda VFR and we're now back, and I have to say it was quite a compelling ride to experience this motorcycle, especially for me. I think the star of the bike is kind of the V4 engine. It is, I mean, right now all the new sport bikes are kind of coming with a V4, and the old 4-cylinders, I think the R1 is the last one that is now going, and that you can get such an old bike with such an amazing engine is so nice actually. Like how actually those engine internals working on that motorcycle. You earlier told me that the bike doesn't have a Steuerkette?
Yeah.
What is that in English again?
It's it doesn't have a cam chain. It's got a ist das mein Sohn? No, it's my Schwester.
Ah.
It's got a sorry about the interruption.
Yeah, no worries.
We're just expecting someone to come in any second. It's got a cam gear drive.
Okay.
So that means the camshafts are operated by gears all stacked on top of one another, which was very expensive in the production. And from 2002 onwards, because of the production costs, Honda decided to drop it. So if you decide to get one of these clockwork engines, buy a VFR up to the date, that's probably the 800s until 2001. That's my son.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's there.
So, we were shortly interrupted, but we were at the cam gear drive, correctly.
That's right, yeah. It's but they're very expensive in the production.
Yeah.
There were some other models from Honda which also had that.
But I mean, it's amazing to for its longevity, right?
Yeah.
Like I personally would never, like one of the rules that I have in my personal life is that I never buy a VW with a cam gear drive. So must be great for reliability then.
It is.
Yeah.
These engines have been known with 150,000, 160,000, and you have to if you know the internals of a watch,
Yeah.
and that's basically how the engine is.
Oh, okay, that's great.
You know,
Yeah.
you've got a chain only going to the rear
Yeah.
wheel, and from the clutch there's a small chain which drives the oil pump.
Yeah. And
Okay.
you can still kind of hear the gears going in when driving.
Yeah, it
And
winds.
and that's such a cool feeling, especially when they're deciding to overtake and you just twist the throttle, feel this characterful engine that has newton meters across the whole range basically, and you hear this amazing sound, not just of the engine but also of the gears going.
Yeah.
As the engine itself is quite quiet, but it has a really distinctive sound.
It does, yeah. It's a shame they don't produce them anymore, because that was one of the strong characteristics of all most VFRs.
Yeah, but I mean, talking about the quite quiet sound, this bike is so misleading in the way that it when you drive it, it doesn't give you many clues that you're actually going fast.
No, it's very deceptive.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of dangerous, because you're comfortable, you're chilling, and all of a sudden you're realizing I'm breaking the law, you basically sit comfortably at that point. So it is not basically your sports bike in a traditional sense where you can hear it and have all those sensations, but you can have that in a really relaxed and cruising feeling, even though our German traffic laws are probably not so fussed about that.
No.
But yeah.
It's a lot of discipline, having to, as you noticed, having to always look at the speedo, which we did as law-abiding citizens.
Yeah. And also the bike so quickly goes up to those 200 kilometers an hour
on the racetrack.
Yeah, on the racetrack or on the unrestricted part of the Autobahn. But you really don't really feel it and then you're already there. And the bike also sits so comfortably at 200 kilometers an hour. This is a 30-year-old bike. If we're talking other bikes, you feel your heart beating in your neck when you're going speeds like that.
Yeah.
And with this, you're just sitting at it. You're getting at that speed quite quickly. I really rarely do speeds like that on a motorcycle because I'm not comfortable enough for it. And with this bike, that's quite impressive, also for a 30-year-old bike.
Yeah, I've gone through the cycle parts of it. I've changed the front springs and the forks. They've been adjusted. And there's also something being done with the rear shock as well. Yeah. Which is a big difference. And as I mentioned earlier, when going through it, all bikes, it doesn't matter what, they are too softly sprung.
Yeah.
And if I was to have one,
I mean, you said on the Interceptor today, so you know what that is like.
Yeah, it's for comfort. Yeah. But that thing is also comfortable.
Yeah, it really is. I was sitting on it now all day, and you guys probably have not seen that much, but we sat quite a lot in traffic as well. And on a 600 sports bike from the same time, it would be pure agony. And on this, it was really nice. And when arriving here, I realized I'm all good. And that is so nice and so positive. And also one thing that is really positive, this bike has this very special look, and part of that look is the rear swing arm, which is a one-sided swing arm, which looks so cool. And you only usually see that on Italian bikes and on that one Honda that's $30,000 on the used market with the dual headlight.
Yes.
And it is a patented design you mentioned earlier, right?
I think, I'm not sure if it was the late 70s or 80s. The French Elf company sponsored the Honda race team, and they developed a special frame for that, which had not just a single-sided arm, but also a single-sided fork leg at the front. And they were responsible for making sure that these Honda Elves, or the Elf Hondas, would win, because the advantage of that is by wheel changing. For 24-hour racing, they need to change the tires, change the wheels.
Yeah, and of course, it's with that on a car, right? So
yeah, it's very fast. You take the wheel off, the rear wheel, and the chain and sprocket stays there. Oh, okay. The sports bikes had the exhaust running on the other side, so they had direct access to the rear wheel. So it's just like one mechanic, old wheel out, new one in, and he's gone in 10 seconds. There's a wheel change.
Oh, that's so cool. Like how nice actually. Also, of course, it really adds to the general look of the motorcycle. Because with the dual headlight, with this 90s sports bike look, with the integrated blinkers, and then with the single-sided swing arm, it's in this really special looking motorcycle. And I think it gives the bike a lot of character. I personally really love those like double headlight motorcycles, and we earlier talked at the gas station about like I started riding on a Yamaha FCR, and that one has both lights going, and for someone of you who wants to get a bike like that, that of course can be the better thing as it's more symmetric. But the experience that I had is with the FCR in comparison to this motorcycle, people constantly miss you because you have two dual headlights and they think it's a car in the distance, because that is just like a lot farther away. And with this you don't have that issue because only one light is glowing and the other one is for the high beams. So even though maybe some of you who are comparing these bikes think it could be a downside, safety wise it actually is a huge benefit, and I definitely felt that today also, that the cars noticed me more than on that bike, because on that bike I was basically super invisible and really nice.
Another plus advantage is that it's possible if you've got two of the same bulbs in there, and they're both H4s.
Ah, okay, so you can change them when it goes out.
Yeah,
cool.
But you don't need any tools. You can actually go in there and just without any tools, just swap the bulbs over.
Yeah.
Because the other one comes on only on high beam. So if the low beam was to break, you've got the chance of just stopping somewhere, swapping them around, and carrying on without having to buy a new bulb.
Yeah.
It takes you 5 minutes to do that job. I've done it. So.
And also, like, from a visual standpoint, I love how the mirrors look, because they build such a flat line, like on the big FCR, the 1000, and that looks so visually pleasing. Like, it is so hard to mess up these mirrors from like a visual standpoint. They easily look shit, and on this bike they look really nice and really add to the visual appeal. And also from the feeling of sitting on the bike, I really like how the instruments look. The amount of instruments for the time is crazy. You have fuel gauge, you have everything as a little light, you have blinking indicators. Like, I have not seen a bike from the 90s until now that has all that stuff. That is really impressive.
It's all analog.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a analog speed, rev counter, water temperature, and petrol. It's all analog. It's all like, it's a modern bike, but it's a bit old school.
Yeah.
I suppose we'd call it neo-retro.
Yeah. Right now we have the plane. If you guys are watching this, we have a plane flying over that's messing with the audio. Yeah. All in all, I have to say, like, all the things we now summed up. Amazing V4 engine, which lasts really long, is characterful, and as V4 engines are currently all the hype, how cool is that? We have an amazing riding motorcycle that also for a 30-year-old bike really handles well, that has power figures where the Japanese producers of these motorcycles lied a little bit, similar to with the gentleman's agreement from which they did with the cars, how they all for some time had 275 horsepower. Where was the 98 horsepower thing?
It was in Germany, I think, most Germany, because of the insurance jump. If your motorcycle back then was up to 98 horsepower, your insurance premium was like payable, and things would go north expensive. It was over. So this, ironically, the predecessor and the follow-up model all had at least 10 horsepower more.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, this one had 98, which was good for the cheaper insurance. It's the reason, one of the many reasons I bought the bike.
Yeah.
You know,
but
because of that. But
when you ride it, you feel that's more power than that.
There's more. Yeah, there is more. It's an insider tip, this bike, because you can still buy them for about, you know, a decent one you'll get for about $2,500.
Yeah.
Whether euros, dollars, or pounds, it doesn't matter. It's a very good condition.
And also, like, with everything you get for that, you get the amazing technique, you get the single-sided swing arm, you get a dual headlight, you get this amazing engine, more power than promised, and like such a beautiful dash. And like for the time, it's an amazing motorcycle. And I would say from all the bikes that I've reviewed until now on this channel and bikes that I've heard of, this seems like the best value for money motorcycle that I've featured on the channel for now. And it is a really cool bike, and definite huge thanks to you that you invited me to ride the motorcycle. If you have a motorcycle that you would like me to review and that is very special and close to you, feel free to write me an email. And see you guys in the next one, and I have the links to my Patreon and my other socials down in the description.